back of your screen. Indeed, there goes the green flag. That says the grid is formed and everyone is happy with that. You can see the lights to the left-hand side of your screen. When the lights go out, we will be away and racing. Away we go. Good start from Emma Muller, who covers off that line. Less of a good start from Jaap van Lagen, who just seemed to bog down a bit, and he's going to lose out of place potentially here to Sven Muller as they go for turn one. Also trying to make hay while the sun shines into that turn one was one of the Conrad Motorsport cars, but that's been run out wide. Just manages to avoid the gravel.
Engelhardt it was, and it was Clement Schmidt who was the white car that's in the gravel. He'd made the run up the inside, and Schmidt, there you can see, is off the road. And having said he was one to watch, he has been one to watch for the wrong reasons. And there's more mayhem, absolute mayhem, because in the midst of all of that is Rolf Ineiken. You've got Robert Lukash. You've also lost in all of that Tom Dillman, the French Championship fourth place man. 26 has been annihilated, Nicky Tim. And the one that got turned around and was therefore rammed into was Sven Muller, who was third on the grid. That's going to be a safety car straight away. The race is neutralised, and that's going to take some clearing up. But I think it was Sven Muller that was turned around, and there was just nowhere for people to go. And that has done a lot of damage, and that is going to take quite a lot of clearing up. And you can see there are bits of kart everywhere. And that is a big old impact. Rolf Ineiken sitting in the middle of it, having been blitzed from behind. You've got Nicky Tim, who can't get out of his car because he's squashed in there. Muller with broken suspension. And Alex Riberas, who was rear-ended as well. There's a wheel off somebody's car. Yes, well, I think you said turn one was quite tricky.
Let's see a replay of the start here. And Emma Muller did it perfectly, to be fair, and I really thought he might get hung out to dry here by Jaap van Lagen, but van Lagen really bogged down. That allowed Emma Muller to close off that line. Sven Muller was right alongside Jaap van Lagen.
Now Schmidt rides over the back, look, of Sven Muller. And then as they work their way up into the next part of the circuit, what goes wrong for Muller? Because we know he got involved in the impact. I just wonder whether that contact there did something to Muller's car that caused him to have a spin at the next corner and then get involved in the incident, which we need to try and piece together. So that's the end of Clement Schmidt. He comes charging up the inside, and bang. Engelhardt's badly delayed. And that was Clement Schmidt. Wheels are spinning, trying to get himself out of the gravel. And there are some very frustrated drivers in that turn two melee.
Yes, what we've not seen is how that happened, but perhaps we will now from this aerial shot. So you think damage to Muller's car perhaps turned him around?
Let's have a look. It's 3 wide, look, down to turn 3.
That's where it started, isn't it? Where we've paused that picture for you.
The red flag is being shown. The race is being stopped because there's so much. Shot horsed up the inside. Muller does get turned around. Nicky Tim hits him. Riberas hits him. Ineiken goes in. Blind okay. And in they all pile. Robert Lukash, I think, was the man that was given the biggest hit of all by Tom Dillman. Lifted Lukash's car up. So have a look at shot horsed up the inside. He's already gone through, but in doing so, turns Muller around. Bang, bang, wait for the next hit. Crunch. Because that was Robert Lukash, who was turned around big time by Tom Dillman. And with so much carnage to sort out, a red flag is being shown. The race is being stopped. Here it is from another angle. Bang. And wait for this hit. Lukash is the one that really suffered the most, I think, being hit very hard from behind, having cannoned into the back of Rolf Ineiken. So, we've just been talking about Ineiken having 8 wins out of 10 races. Well, it's not going to be 9 from 11, is it?
No.
And there is Robert Lukash, who I think has certainly felt the impact in that incident. So, the race director, Van Eichinger, says enough is enough. And you can see why, because that is going to take many a minute to sort out.
Yes, not what we wanted to see at the start of this Carrera Cup race. Race red flag there following that incident. And, well, rather than Sven Muller with damage to the car, it rather looked like he was just turned around,
yes.
Doesn't it?
Yes, indeed.
And then the rest, it was just... Well, we have an expression in oval racing in the UK called follow in, and that's basically what a number of cars did, didn't they? They followed like a pack into one another.
And that's Com Ledejar, who was pitted, and you can see he got involved in it somewhere because a radiator has been done. That's all the fluid leaking out of the front. radiators right at the front of a racing Porsche. You don't have to do very much by way of a tap to suddenly destroy the radiator, and that is exactly what has happened. And what looks like a car with incontinence is just because the contents of the radiator are now gushing out all over the pit lane floor. Rolf Nijken, I think, is the man who has perhaps been given a big whack in that as well, and it's taking the gentleman racer a little bit longer to get out of his car. The medical team there. Now, the safety car has stopped on the grid, and I'm just presupposing that the race director is suspending rather than stopping the race. Instead of giving a grid start and a complete restart, you can suspend the race. So you have effectively, and that's another car that's been involved, 15 is Sean Johnston. You have...
Well, I thought I saw Sean Johnston getting into that minibus.
You have a virtual safety car period, and that's what a race suspension is. Instead of driving around endlessly, you sort of have the equivalent of a safety car period, but without actually anybody moving. It happened, for example, a few weeks ago in the Spa 24 Hours. Everyone parked on the grid for an hour, and then we just carried on as we were. And so it's a similar situation here. I suspect the race director, if he wants to continue the race, can do so, having suspended it like this. There's the incident. It was Muller who got turned around. Now, where did Johnston suffer? I reckon he might have got involved. Yes, look, he's gone round the outside. It was his wheel that we saw come off. Alex Riberas in the middle of the road. Here we go again. So the top two escape. Muller has been tagged sideways. He gets hit by Tim, who gets hit by Riberas. Nijken goes in. Lukáš goes in. Tom Dillman arrives on the scene. Blitz, blitz, blitz. Johnston round the outside, losing wheels. And this from another angle. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Tom Dillman almost avoided it. Yes, it was. Johnston was on the outside of Dillman, wasn't he? So as Dillman sort of tried to swerve around it, have a look on the outside of this shot, and you might see what happened to Johnston about now. There he is. He gets glanced by Dillman, and that does two corners of the car. Off comes the wheel. Blimey. That's a lot of damage.
It is a lot of damage.
Now, who in that, if anybody, is well placed in the championship? It's not really affected the leading point scorers, has it? Because it was happening a little bit further down. But Sven Muller was 6th in the championship. He's the highest placed of those involved in it.
So we can see attention being given to drivers down there from the medical team who were on it straight away. And as you indicated, there's going to be quite a lot of mess, isn't there, to clear up there.
Robert Lukáš on his phone. So he's saying I'm all right, but I've got a sore neck, probably. And there is Comme Ledojar explaining who did what to which and to whom. And his car looks relatively unscathed, but the fact that it's down the radiator clearly puts pay to its chances of getting back into the race. Sean Johnston trudges away, very frustrated, and there Comme Ledojar with the liquid just pouring out of the front. And the red lights saying that for the moment is that.
So
that's the scene on the grid.
So then, as you have indicated, we're presupposing that this is a race suspension rather than a sort of a full restart. But to be fair, look at the damage on the Johnston car, and the Johnston car was just one that glanced, wasn't it?
Yes.
To be fair,
but the wrong angle.
Yeah, sure. Kind of taken the side out of that, hasn't it?
Exactly
And
right.
you know, the clear-up operation isn't going to be the work of a couple of moments.
And that's partly why the race has had to be stopped like this. It might sound flippant to say there aren't enough recovery vehicles, but genuinely, with so many cars to move, so much debris to sweep off the track, if you let everybody continue to drive round, you'd very quickly get to the end of the 25-minute time slot and or number of laps available to you. So the race has been suspended like this, and it will either be continued as soon as the track is clear or have to be put to the end of the day and rerun. So Rolf Nijken is the man. Again, it's also to make sure that the driver can be attended to safely. Rolf Nijken just needs some help to get out of the car so a potential back injury isn't worsened or his neck jarred, for example, in that impact. So they want to have, the medical extrication team want to have the greatest amount of time and ease to get a driver out of the car safely. And you can see that the stretcher is there. Of course, it again sounds flippant, but if you're going to have an accident, a motor racing circuit is the best place to have it, because there's a very full medical team that are there and can get to you within seconds. There is a fantastic medical centre at any circuit you go to, and so Rolf Nijken is going to be straight away in the best possible care. And if he's been complaining of a sore neck, absolutely no risk will be taken to get him out of the car. That will be done slowly and deliberately, and no doubt with a neck brace, and then onto a backboard, and he'll go to the medical centre and be given the due care. And in the meantime, Franz Conrad will be thinking about whether or not cars can be repaired for tomorrow, as will other teams up and down the pit lane. Like Keller's car, you see, just parked on the grid behind Ralph Bohn, who has been another driver who's gone well this year in Class B, had a win this year. Robert Lucas's car, I'm not sure we're going to see that tomorrow. That's got big damage front and rear. And you can see the remonstrations have come at Attempto, because that is the team that operates Peter Schotthorst's car. And there are some very grumpy people saying it was your guy who went up the inside that triggered all of that. And it is, we did say before the race started, Peter Schotthorst makes mistakes. Yes. And once again, I think there's been a display of zealotry that has triggered an incident, and we haven't yet had any confirmation of a driver being under investigation for that. I suspect it's because the race director is a bit busy with other things, but it would not be a surprise to learn that one or two drivers were being looked at post-race.
Well, this is the Carrera Cup Deutschland, and sadly not one lap completed before this incident, which has involved 5 or 6 cars, and Rolf Nyken still being attended to by the medical team before he's extracted from the car. And the rest of the cars under a red flag have been brought back to the grid as the conversations from Alex Riberas continue down there on the pit perches. And basically Alex Riberas there having a discussion with the McGregor team.
For whom he drives, of course, because although McGregor is one operation within Attempto, his is an Attempto car anyway. You've got the McGregor by Attempto Racing part, and you've got the Attempto Racing powered by Herring, which is for whom Alex Riberas drives. So these two different camps under the one umbrella, which makes for a rather uneasy situation, doesn't it now?
Well, it does in this situation, doesn't it? And quite a lot of mess down there that's still going to have to be cleared up once Rolf is out of the car and in the best possible hands.
Now, the teams are being notified there are no parc fermé conditions, which means that mechanics can now go onto the grid, which makes me think we might be getting a grid restart, but I will confirm that when the race director has confirmed it to the teams. But normally, teams would not be allowed onto the grid, but we've had the message, no parc fermé conditions. There's Alex Riberas' car out of harm's way. And again, it doesn't look that badly damaged, but that right rear corner, badly broken. Here we go again. Look, Schotthorst up the inside. 3 into 1 would not go. Round goes Muller. The one that got away very luckily was in the middle of that, Jeffrey Schmidt in the black and white car.
Yeah.
You saw Nyken take the hit that lifted the rears off the ground. That was a big hit, in fairness to him. And he was sandwiched in the middle of other cars. He was going nowhere, was he? All that energy went through Rolf, sadly. Here it is. Bang.
Yeah, 2 very big hits there, weren't there, that he suffered. He was going nowhere because, of course, his car was wedged into the car ahead of him.
And although he wasn't in that train, Sean Johnston with lots of damage on the outside. Alex Riberas had stopped round the corner. So it's about 8 cars, I think, we've lost, isn't it? 7 on the track, plus Comme Ledojar in the pit lane. Robert Lucas complaining of a sore neck. There is Comme Ledojar explaining, as best he can remember it, what happened. And this is the scene live on track as drivers are in some ways trudging their way back to the pits, in other instances looking at the damage of the cars, and the race control team hard at work. Well, we've only now really got just one more car to get out of the way. Another good thing about a modern day Grand Prix circuit is that there are so many access points, so many perimeter roads on the inside and the outside. It does not take long to get cars out of the way and back to the teams and to clear the circuit. It's just driver welfare now that is the primary objective of the race director. And then, of course, you might even need the track sweeper to go and get rid of all of those bits of car that are lying on the ground. So, you know when I said there are 37 in this race? Well, we've lost quite a chunk of them. Walter Lechner and his team down on the grid. Mechanics making their way onto the circuit, and the safety car still with the lights flashing. That will confirm how the restart will be. Rolf Eichen is now out of the car with help, and you can see how much Porsche there is to sweep up. You can also see all the liquid that's gone down from an assortment of cars as radiators have gone bang. Yeah. Probably just about every car in that incident. Certainly those are the front impact, of which there were many. So it does leave a huge amount of damage, and it gives the teams a big workload for tonight. Conrad does have a spare car because Christian Engelhardt's car, another number 8 car, for example, is used for taxi rides as part of the manufacturer involvement in a DTM weekend. Is that possible to make into a racer?
Yes, could that car be readied?
Yeah, take out a passenger seat. Rolf Eichen would not have qualified in that, but depends what the race director felt, even assuming Rolf feels like racing tomorrow, and that's moving ahead a little bit, I know. So the marshals hard at work, and down on the grid, the teams await news. We had, when they got to the timing line, Clemens Schmidt parking himself at the front of the queue there, but it was Michael Ammermuller who led at the end of lap 1. So things will need a little bit of reorganisation, I think, before we get going properly.
So with no part ferme conditions, which has allowed the teams, as you can see, out onto the track, presumably the cars will grid up again rather than just continue.
The first thing they've got to do is get Clemens Schmidt to the back, because he's effectively a lap down because he'd been in the gravel. So whatever they do, they need to get him either round a lap or pushed to the back. The clock has been stopped, but the mechanics have been allowed on the grid, but the safety car is still there, and there is no suggestion of regridding. And they could, if they were to be regridded, they could have done that in the time available whilst this incident has been cleared. And that's making me think now that they will continue after a suspension rather than regridding. Of course, this is what you're going to have in Formula 1 in reverse next year. If there is a red flag, it will always be from a grid, even after a safety car period as well. It will be a standing start. So there is the race leader, in quotes, Michael Ammermuller, patiently sitting there, the double Norris Ring winner. But as I say, Clemens Schmidt's car needs putting in the right place. This helps him because it gets him right to the back of the queue without having to do the work to catch up.
Yes. As they continue to clear the last of the remaining damaged cars, that of Rolf Eichen. We were talking just before we went on the air about Michael Ammermuller and his single-seater success and how he now seems to have found his home in Porsche racing, doesn't he?
Yeah. Both in this and the Super Cup, which is, again, where he needs to be, because you do well in one-make Porsche racing and you hope then to get on the Porsche factory programme and be put into GT teams around the world. Ammermuller is somebody who has always had speed but has his red mist moments.
Right.
And it's getting those out of his system that gradually, I think, is happening. Out of the car, he looks like an accountant. He's a bespectacled, very urbane bloke. But he does have these real red mist moments. He had them in Formula Renault, he had them in A1 GP, and that perhaps dented the reputation. He needs some good, consistent seasons. And he's doing a decent job in this. Trouble is, he's found one of the most competitive championships on the planet.
Yes. And we should remember, of course, that there are a great number of Porsche Carrera Cup series around the world. We've already mentioned the Asian series and the French series, from which we've seen drivers into the German series as well. And I think it's fair to say that across all of the different series around the world, though, the German series is the one that is the most competitive, isn't it?
Yes, and it's numerically very, very strong as well. So it has that advantage. Now, I'm just looking down onto the grid where the DMSB officials are arriving with bits of paper that would make one think grid sheet. So we shall see what develops next. We've got 15 minutes on the clock. That has just been reset. So whatever the restart is, it will be to a maximum, by the look of it, of 15 minutes.
It's going to be a short and sharp dash for cash. David?
That'll make driving standards impeccable, won't it? The fact that you've got less time in which to make progress. So, stalking idea, that is right. So, there is Christian Engelhardt with all 4 wheels on his wagon, unlike in qualifying. Double winner this year, Christian Engelhardt. He had a win at Ottersleben in race 2, and he backed it up with a win first time out in Hungary. So, the officials are on the grid. There is Franz Conrad, who is trying to split his time between thinking about a customer car that's damaged and those that are on the grid ready to go. Franz Conrad himself, former Austrian Formula 3 champion, has been a racer both in single-seaters and sports cars, part of the Silk Cut Jaguar Group C programme from a time, but more recently has run with huge success Porsches in Carrera Cup Deutschland and, of course, in the Super Cup. Ran Nick Tantley very successfully for a time, and Franz Conrad, a great enthusiast even after all of these years.
Yes. And
this is a championship that has looked after him well. Now then, if there are officials there with a plan, it's not yet being revealed, is it?
No. Absolutely nothing on our screen to indicate what is going to happen. That, whilst at first appearances doesn't look like a track sweeper, but actually it is, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
So, well, the marshals there have done a jolly good job, because that track looks now in pristine condition, doesn't it?
Indeed. There's still 1 or 2 bits that are being kicked out of the way. There is what's left of Rolf Eichen's car. That has really taken a whack, hasn't it? Front, rear, broken wheels, indicating how hard it's been hit. So that car will certainly need some TLC before it's able to go racing again. If they're going to let Clemens Schmidt drive to the back of the grid rather than push the car, they want
he should be on his way.
Well, yeah, but they also need the circuit to be clear,
yeah,
because
of course.
No race director, I would have thought, is going to say, right, off you go, and risk him driving over any shards of bodywork.
Fair point.
Maybe that's why they're just holding that until the circuit is absolutely clear, and then they can do what they need to do.
That's a fair point. So Clemens Schmidt out of position then at the head of that pack that you're seeing on screen right now. Race we're expecting to resume, but to be shortened to 15 minutes duration only, which may mean that there'll be quite a lot of anxious moments as everyone realises they've got a shorter time to make their way up the order. We will see.
It's going to be about 8 laps, isn't it? Give or take.
Yeah.
So it's not long. And you've got Peter Schotthorst still on the grid. So you never know what he might do a second time around. If Peter is indeed to blame, it was certainly his lunge up the inside that was partly the catalyst for the earlier dramas. And let's see what happens this time around, assuming that we get things underway swiftly.
We have some notification up on our screen now that we're going to get 2 laps behind the safety car.
Okay.
And then, presumably, race resumes.
Yes, without the safety car, as in the race will carry on behind the safety car now. So when they next go over the timing line, that will be the end of the next lap.
Right.
I would predict. What I'm interested in is what they're going to do with Clemens Schmidt, because the safety car picked him up and not the race leader.
So presumably Clemens will be allowed to pass the safety car?
Well, it's a good question. They don't have to do that. Wherever possible, the safety car will pick up the race leader. If the safety car has to be scrambled, which it clearly did, it will pick up any car. Now, sometimes the race director will say, OK, right, let him by.
Yep.
And if they've got 2 laps, then, yes, that could certainly be done. But I don't think it's an essential. So let's see what Werner Eichinger, who is the race director, elects to do. But those 2 laps behind the safety car will get things underway, and then we shall go back to racing. So they presumably would count as well within the 15 minutes, which therefore takes away the number of potential racing laps. So you could be down to about 5 laps here.
Well, as you can see, there are team members still on the grid at the moment. They've not been ushered away yet, as we see Fabian Thüner there. We have been given the confirmation that we're going to get 2 laps behind the safety car when the safety car gets going.
He's thinking about his engine, Thüner. Sorry, Fabian Thüner, former Renault racer, first year in Porsches after a spell in the Blancpain Endurance Series. This is the other McGregor car, isn't it?
Race suspensions like this that we begin to get the famed Addison jokes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I've got 36 more drivers to have a stab at, so bear with. Bear with. Then you've got
Christopher Zirkling.
Christopher Zirkling, yes, indeed. Yes. Who will be looking to gain places. He'll be Zirkling on the turn. Like a vulture, Zirkling, yes.
Okay.
Right, next. Where do we go next? Clement Schmidt at the front of the grid, but he's notionally a lap behind. Franz Conrad being interviewed for German television. You can just see down on the grid with his headset there behind the safety car, just to the left rear of the safety car, ahead of Jaap van Lagen's pale yellow entry. The car that's normally in the hands of Jim Pla, who is missing this race because, sadly, of a differential problem, the differential between the money he's got and the money he needs. And hopefully he will be back before the end of the season. They've not had a falling out with him. It's just that, in all seriousness, I gather a sponsor has pulled out, and that's left him with a shortfall. So, shame that, because Jim is a quick driver. In fairness, though, Jaap van Lagen is making the car go quicker than ever.
Yes.
So it would be good to see Jaap out more often in this championship.
So there a shot of the cars all parked up, ready for the race to resume. And once again, there's no seemingly no urgency to scramble the pit crews away from the racing circuit.
Now, one of the race control vehicles, which for DTM weekends is a BMW, has just come into the pit lane. So the race officials have gone and had a look at the scene.
Yep. And
they think that they are content. So with a report back from race officials who've been to look at the incident zone,
right.
that
Clement
should make
Schmidt.
things move. Right, he's on his way.
He's been told to park up at the back.
And the race will be resumed in 3 minutes' time. Resumed. Not restarted, resumed.
That's the key word, isn't it? So this is the Clement Schmidt. Now, Clement Schmidt was the car that the safety car picked up when the safety car was deployed. He wasn't the leader of the race, therefore he is being sent back to the back of the grid as one of our cameramen who's positioned up there. He's welcome to, frankly.
The poor chap was there last year and no one's thought to bring him down yet.
So once Clement Schmidt has got to the back of the pack, then presumably we're not going to be far away. Well, we're going to be just under 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes away from the race resuming. Clement Schmidt will be back where he should be, which is at the back of the pack. And then it will be Amel Muller, Van Lagen, and Schotthurst then, who was P3.
So stand back. Clement Schmidt here is going for the lap record because he's in a big hurry to get back to the rear of the grid. And as soon as he arrives, effectively, engines will fire up. The teams are now leaving the grid, in fairness. They're heading towards the pit lane. And so the senior officials down on the grid, in radio contact with the race director and race control, who's staring at a bank of monitors, will in a minute be able to give the signal. And then we should be going.
You've had the privilege of being in race control, and it's...
I have here, yes.
Yes, and it's like a mission control, isn't it?
Well, there are two race controls, in fact, because...
Pray tell.
When they run the 24 hours...
Yes.
On another 14 miles worth of circuit, there are so many cameras and so many corners and so many things to look at that what the ADAC does here is have one team running race control from the same building but concentrating on the Nordschleife, and then another race control room and team and monitors looking at the Grand Prix circuit. And it was in the secondary one that I spent a few races here last week at the old timer, the historic Grand Prix, and just trying to do what a race director must have to do and keep track of all of these monitors and follow race leaders. It's a bit like being a TV director, maybe, and watching what's going on, but also having to look at drivers and seeing if there's an incident and where a car ends up. And it is a busy old job, but it's an impressive facility that the Nurburgring as a circuit has. And, of course, for a modern Formula One venue, it's what you would expect, really. Clement Schmidt has arrived, breathless, to the back of the grid. And so we are now looking at a yellow flag because we are behind the safety car. And this is round 11 of Carrera Cup Deutschland, which, after a Herculean task by the officials, now has a clear circuit once again. And any moment, the red light that is on the pit straight will be switched off. The yellow flag will be waved. The safety car will pull away. And... we should, assuming the race director's not gone for his dinner, be back in business. The red lights have been switched off, the safety car peels away, and so the race leader, Michael Amel makes his way over the line to complete lap 2 of the race.
So the resumption of this race following that incident that took out 6, 7 or 8 cars. Very, very unfortunate incident to see. Don't ever want to see that, but of course incidents do happen, and the one that came off worst, both in terms of car damage and you know, potentially hurting himself as well, and is off to the medical centre to be fully checked out, is the leader of our B category, Rolf Eneischen, who has taken so many wins this season. Regrettably, he's not going to be winning this race, and his car won't be competing tomorrow, I wouldn't think. They do, Conrad, as you mentioned, they do have a spare car here, which is within sight from my commentary booth position, and it hasn't been hurried into the temporary Conrad workshops.
No, and it's also the extent of the damage and knowing what bits to cannibalise from it for the new car, and indeed whether you've got the facility to do that. You know, if you've got to do things to the chassis, well, you've got no hope, have you? You can take bits off a car, but it may be that you need to go back to base in order to get the work done. And as we also said, Dave, of course, the starting point is the condition of Rolf Eneischen.
Yes.
So we wish him well after that.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
So hopefully he will be able, in some capacity, to be present for the race tomorrow, if only on the pit wall cheering on his teammates. But we'd like to see him out on the grid. So this is lap 3 of the race. I hope you're keeping up with this. We have now got 15 minutes maximum, and we've got 13 minutes and change on the clock. So 2 laps behind the safety car, counting within the race duration. Why is that? Partly so the drivers can have a look at the track conditions, partly so they can get tyres up to temperature, and hopefully so they can get a little bit of all of that red mist out of the system and then be unleashed safely.
Yes. All we need now is for the heavens to open and it rain. That would be,
thanks.
That would be it, wouldn't it? That would be it, wouldn't it? So this is the first completed lap behind the safety car. We have this lap that's now starting behind the safety car. Then, theoretically, the safety car will peel off into the pit lane, and by that time we'll have, well, just around about 11 minutes of racing to come.
If that, because that was a 2:21. So, yeah, it's going to be just over 10 minutes, I would say. 10 minutes and change, yeah. So, it's going to be about 5 racing laps, 6 at a pinch. And the race order, for what it's worth, is Michael Ammermuller leads from Jaap van Lagen, from Peter Schothorst, from Jeffrey Schmidt. Norbert Siedler then runs 5th. 6th is where you find Lucas Schreier, who started 13th. In 7th place, Philip Eng, who started 11th. In 8th place, it is Kentenich. In 9th, Christian Engelhardt. 10th is Ola Nielsen. And how far down do you have to go to find anybody that leads in Class B now? It is Bill Barazetti, I think, is it not? Who is the class leader from Daniel Alleman. And they are currently 20th and 21st.
P21, you're absolutely right.
So we talk about those in the championship that were involved in that, and I was talking about where people were overall. The real sufferer, you could argue, championship-wise, is the B-class man, Rolf Eneischen again, because that's going to bite into his championship lead if he has to effectively not score in 2 races. Yes, and
his position in the championship is, well, pretty strong as the lights are out in the safety car, meaning that it is coming in. Eneischen on 172 points. Ralph Bone is on 144 in P2. So where is Ralph Bone in the order? Well, beyond.
That's on the top 24, isn't he?
Yeah, he's beyond Barazetti, Alleman. He might be P3 in the B category. That's possible, as we are ready to go, or ready to resume racing once again after that elongated stop for the recovery of those damaged cars. It's Ammermuller that leads from Van Lagen, Schotter, Schmidt, Siedler, Schreier, Eng, and then it's Niklas Kentenich. Schotter's coming under a bit of pressure now.
Jeffrey Schmidt it was, who had a look, can't find a way round, but Schothorst has to go defensive, and so straight away falls off the back of the 2 leaders. But Ammermuller made a good restart there, and he's already gapped the opposition. But now look, Schothorst is having to defend, and that's Bill Barazetti with broken suspension, who is in the gravel, and that is your Class B leader, but not anymore. He has obviously gone off. He's hit something as well as somebody, looking at the damage on the right-hand side. If he'd only run wide at the corner, it would just be damage on the left, but it looks like somebody else was involved. And Ola Nielsen Now, where were they relative to each other on the track? Nielsen was running 10th and Barozzetti was a bit further down in 20th, but that's 2 more that we've lost early doors in the race. We have got 9.5 minutes to go. Could be last man standing, this, couldn't it, at the moment, as they're working his way up the order. It's Christopher Zirkling, who's ahead of Fabien Tounet, who is busy battling with Antti Burri there, the Finn on the outside line in the blue Attempto car. Here they come. Up the curve goes Burri, but he gets himself ahead of Fabien Tounet there.
So just under 9.5 minutes remaining in this race. The race being led by Amber Muller. There we can see Jaap van Lagen. They going through the NGK chicane here, and they absolutely nail this chicane. You can see just how much they put through that Porsche as they ride those curves. And completing a lap is Amber Muller, who increases his lead over Jaap van Lagen by 5/10 from last time around. There is Schothorst in 3rd place, but Schothorst now coming under some pressure. He's got 2, 3 piling up behind him.
Yeah, you've got Jeffrey Schmidt and then Norbert Siedler in the second of those black and white cars. And we know that Norbert Siedler is good in a Carrera Cup car, so he is hustling on. And we've seen 2 more cars with damage. And just to make the point that tomorrow's race starts at 9:05. There's Bill Barozzetti, who got it wrong and came back across the circuit and was hit by Daniel Alaman, that would have been, wouldn't it? And that is how the damage came. He was fired off into the barriers even before he got to the line. So Bill Barozzetti, the dentist, got well and truly drilled there. What happened to other Nielsen? He went up the inside, bounces off the Conrad car there, which I think was Engelhardt.
Yes, it was Engelhardt.
And that would have done damage to other Nielsen, and so he gets to turn 2, and his car gives up the unequal struggle as well. Right, we started with 37. We're down to about 28, I think, now. And we've still got 8 minutes to go. But Bill Barozzetti was far from amused about that. Ah, somebody else in strife, Christopher Burkan, has decided that his car looks better with a different front profile. There's also lots of witness marks up the side from where he's gone into the tyre barrier. Look, all the red paint up the side. So the remains of his car are dragged back. If he's managed to get away without damaging the radiator there, that would have been a result. Here he comes. Here's the barrier. Crunch and crunch again. That's where Ammermuller went off in qualifying. But he's still going. Right, Ammermuller leads the way. That's the easy bit. Second is Jaap van Lagen. Schothorst is hanging on to 3rd. And look at this battle pack coming over the line behind. There are still loads of them at play. And Fabien Tounet goes to the inside there to try and get himself up past Mike Halder. They break for the corner. Antti Burri breaks later than anybody. Fabien Tounet, where's he going? He's going to get all crossed up and he loses loads of places.
Well, I thought just for a moment Antti Burri was going into the back end of one of those cars, but he managed to scrub that speed off. We're watching the back end of Antti Burri there. That's in the blue number 99 Porsche.
The one that gained was Conor De Filippi in the white car. The American, if you remember the start of the race, it was some hours ago, was 22nd, and he has now worked his way up into the top 10, Conor De Filippi. There he is, ahead of Fabien Tounet for the hairpin. But he goes wide, and Fabien Tounet nips up the inside. De Filippi will have the inside line for the next corner. The Schumacher S, as into the pit lane has just come Jochen Haberts. That's another one we've lost from the race. He's got broken front wheel and suspension, as you can see, a wobbly wheel. Christopher Burkan's car has also decided that the pit lane is a far safer place to be. And of the survivors, Michael Ammermuller leads the way into the chicane. Jaap van Lagen not going with him, but I reckon he's being caught now, Van Lagen, by his fellow countryman Peter Schothorst.
Yeah, I think you might be right there, because Ammermuller is getting away. 1.2 was the margin last time around, as they're 3 abreast now off the back of the chicane there.
This bodes well. Fabien Tounet ahead then as they work their way towards us. Robert Renauer is the next man. So the lead gap, Ammermuller now to Van Lagen is 1.8 seconds. Yeah, he's getting away, but you've got Van Lagen there. You can clearly see the whole queue is lining up behind him. Van Lagen and Schothorst, the 2 Netherlands drivers. It's a case of double Dutch, isn't it? As there, Engelhardt gives a tap in the tail to Nicholas Kentenich, and that means he's going to be really careful not to do it harder for the radiator's life.
Absolutely. The front end of those cars, be amazed, is very, very sensitive. That's where the radiator is located, and they are absolutely side by side now between Nicholas Kentenich, and we've got 2 Conrad Motorsport cars lined up behind there. Christian Engelhardt and Christopher Zirkling, both who've done very, very well in the Carrera Cup, and he really is just nudging him through, isn't he? Kentenich really having to try and make that Porsche even wider than it actually is. Let's hope the camera picks them up here. And here we can see that battle resuming. Engelhardt just trying to get up on the inside there, but has to yield because Kentenich had slightly better exits.
And Kentenich is doing a very good job of defending here, because don't forget Engelhardt's a double winner this year, so he knows what he's doing in these cars. And now Engelhardt is under attack because Christopher Zirkling comes up, the man that had a win at the Osserschleben round. Race 1, looks to the inside, can't do it, so Engelhardt hangs onto his place, he launched himself over the curb, and as soon as Engelhardt defends, so he starts to lose touch a little bit with Kentenich. Right, over the line comes Michael Ammermuller, second is Van Lagen. We've got just over 4 minutes to go. The Barozzetti and Daniel Aleman incident is under investigation. Nothing about the first lap dramas as that Lucas Schreier versus Philipp Eng comes down towards turn 1. That is for 6th. Eng does the switchback nicely. He's going to be level with Schreier heading up towards turn 2, but he's on the outside line. He should have the pace then to drive right around the outside. Philipp Eng, the Austrian driver, is he going to be ahead for the next corner? No, but he stands his ground. He's got to stay there because eventually the corner will come to him. He's on the inside line now. Done it, up the inside. Can he get the drive out of the corner? Yes, he can. He forces Schreier out wide, and so Philipp Eng now for the inside line at the hairpin. He's going to get the job done under braking. Now, finally, 4 corners into the lap. The place is his. He worked for that. He
did work for that. Remained absolutely committed to the line he had, didn't he? And you're absolutely right. He needed to do that. He needed to stay so committed. And, well, that was great to watch. So, Ammermuller leads from Van Lagen. Eng, you can see there in P6 now. And 3 minutes left to run. There is our race leader who is pulling away from the second place Jaap van Lagen. The battles between Schotthurst and Schmidt and Seidler means that the pressure on Jaap van Lagen has gone away just for a moment, doesn't it?
Indeed so. Look, Schotthorst now dropping away as well because he's having to defend from Jeffrey Schmidt. The progress of Clemens Schmidt, by the way, from effectively the rear of the pack, he's up to 20th, and there's still a bit of progress to be made before the very end. But again, in a one-make race, it is not easy to carve your way through, and you can see how the gaps are opening up. There is the Dutchman Wolf Nathan in the Land Motorsport car, former Porsche 944 turbo champion, Wolfgang Land.
Now, of course, he will be presumably the leader in the B category. I think is the highest place because he's being placed P21 overall.
Yeah, what happened to Daniel Aleman after his clash with Barozzetti? I think he pitted, didn't he? So you're right, it's going to be B-class lead for Wolf Nathan as the leaders then with 2 more minutes to go are going to squeeze 1 more lap out of this race at the end of this, aren't they? And Michael Ammermuller leads by 2 seconds, but Van Lagen has just done the absolute best in Sector 1.
So will it be a last lap lunge from Jaap van Lagen? I think it's too far back probably to be able to make that happen.
And I'm also tempted, bearing in mind how we talked about him in Osserschleben, to say no, because he's not doing the full championship. No. And he doesn't really, yes, he wants to win races, but he doesn't really want to ruin somebody's championship hopes by getting involved in an incident. That's not what he's here for.
Fair point. And there is our race leader currently, Michael Ammermuller. As again, just roll over the curbs in these Porsches, absolutely wring the neck out of them, don't they? So, Ammermuller crosses the line as a race leader.
Van Lagen's just done the fastest lap of the race, so what he is doing is proving he's got the speed. If he can force a mistake out of Ammermuller,
different ball game.
Happy days, yeah. Then Schotthorst third, Jeffrey Schmidt going very, very strongly in 4th place. And here's the Conrad fight with Engelhardt ahead of Zirkling, and they are still stuck behind Nicholas Kentenich, who is having a very good effort in this race, isn't he, Kentenich?
Certainly. And, well, neither Engelhardt nor Zirkling have been able to find a way past Nicholas Kentenich. And that is the battle for P8. Ahead of them, Schreier, and ahead of those, Philipp Eng, P6. It's Norbert Seidler is P5, and Jeffrey Schmidt, P4. So those Conrad cars keeping the pressure up and on. It is the final lap as predicted for this man, Michael Ammermuller, then, who in a somewhat shortened race is going to take win number 3 of the season.
And Kentenich's previous best 12th, so if he can hang on to 8, that will be a good result for him for sure. But here is Michael Ammermuller then, and he has driven impeccably. I know it's been a slightly odd race with that long stoppage and a shortened restart, but for Ammermuller, win number 3 has been well deserved. And look at 3rd place, Schotthorst clatters over the curb. He has got Jeffrey Schmidt right up behind him as Ammermuller heads to the flag.
So there is Michael Ammermuller then, who will take the win. The checkered flag falls for the Ammermuller car. Jaap van Lagen takes P2. Schotthurst holds on to P3 from Schmidt. Then it's Seidler, then it's Eng, then it's Schreier. Kentenisch holds on for P8 ahead of the two Conrad Motorsport cars of Engelhardt P9, Zoechling P10.